YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. We got off-season content starting to roll out here. It's that time of the year. We got free agency. We're going to have trades. We're going to have the NFL draft coverage for all of that, so I cannot wait. A lot of it already up, so check it out. Check out the channel for that recent content. Today, going over the top needs for each and every NFL team. Got them ordered, top three, 1 to 3, of course. Going to break it down. So excited about this. Excited again to start rolling into this offseason content. A lot of NFL coverage, rumors, predictions on Twitter. It's on your screen. There's also a link pinned in the comments with other useful links as well. So check it out. Here's our Twitter. You guys are voting for the Super Bowl. That'll be involved in our picks video, which will be next week of the Super Bowl. A lot of Senior Bowl updates on here. We're going through all kinds of stuff. So we got to go through every single NFL team here and their top three needs. Start with the AFC East, New England Patriots. Right off the bat, that's why I like this video. It's kind of informing to, not only people watching, but I think myself too, because I kind of sit down, really evaluate free agents, the roster for each team. And the Patriots are a pretty good example of, that because, first glance you think receiver. Everyone talk about they need a receiver, and I do have that. I have that number 2. Team like the Bengals showing how important not only receiver is, but you got to have some top-tier guys there, maybe multiple top-tier guys. So that's why the Patriots need, that a legit number 1. But they have some solid receivers. I look at the linebacker group. They have free agents in there, mainly the inside linebacker group there. Dante Hightower, free agent, obviously. There's a couple of those guys in there. And they really struggled to stop the run. If in the running game, whether it was running back or maybe Josh Allen, got by the line of scrimmage, the defensive line, linebackers were a little bit of a problem there. So they'll be looking to either, to add linebackers here to make sure that defense is back to playing that Bill Belichick defense. So I do think linebacker is one. Receivers, another. Again, they got a couple receivers that can play. They're kind of just looking. They got quite a few number 2s, in my opinion. Aguilar, Bourne, Myers. These guys are number 2s. They need a legit number 1. And then corner is number 3. You got to factor in free agents. J.C. Jackson is a free agent, so it's pretty much Jalen Mills out there. And even with J.C. Jackson in there, I think they'll get him back. That's another discussion on free agency predictions that we'll get to, but. Even with him back, they probably could use another one in there as well. So, I do think corner is a pretty big need. So those are my top 3 for the New England Patriots. The Bills are going to put corner up there at the top for the Bills. Tre'Davious White will be back, but they could use another guy after that. They did a good job kind of hiding that corner was kind of a weak spot for them this year. I think it's just because of the talent around them, but the Chiefs were a team that exposed that. So I'm going to go corner number 1. It's pretty close, though. You got to throw a defensive tackle at number 2 because they got some free agents. They'll get Ed Oliver back in there, but other than that, Vernon Butler, Harrison Phillips, some free agents, and of course they might be able to get these guys back, but they could definitely use somebody else in there. If they can get a standout defensive tackle on the inside here, that could really help the Bills' defense even further. And the interior offensive line was kind of hit or miss this year. They could look to add somebody else. Who they add might not be a day one starter, but it might be more of a near future type guy they can look to add in the interior, whether it's a future center or guard, near future perhaps. As you can tell, and as you expected, the Bills don't really have a lot of need. It's why they're one of the better teams, and we expect them to be one of the better teams because they've got a pretty balanced roster. But, corner, defensive tackle, I can argue kind of flipping that too because the Tre'Davious White is coming back, but still could use another one here. But, yeah, look out for them trying to add a big-time defensive tackle as well. Not a lot of cap space to work with, but we'll see what they do. If they try to get bigger and better there, they try to just bring back their guys, which either one could do. The Jets, I'm going to go linebacker first. And I did a recent mock draft, and I had them taking Devin Lloyd, a linebacker, with their second first-round pick, which they're both early. It's just so important, just having a impact linebacker, Robert Saleh's scheme there. And they got some decent guys out there. Jared Davis, I thought was a pretty good addition, but he got hurt pretty early on, but it was only a 1-year deal. Mosley declining a little bit, but still can play. they got a guy that can run. They need a guy that can run this defense. They need a rangy linebacker that can help out just as much in the run game as in the pass game. So I actually do think, I think adding a legit linebacker like that could actually really elevate this defense. Because I think that's where it starts, in my opinion. They get Carl Lawson back. They have the edge, so they have the edge rushers. They have Quinn Williams on the inside. They got quite a few guys down there on the defensive line, but they could use corners as well as that linebacker. The corners look pretty weak on paper. I honestly thought they played a little better than expected at least, but they could use a corner. And then offensive tackle, really it's just only one tackle they need because they have Mekhi Becton. But if they add another tackle, it's looking pretty good. I like the Jets situation. I like their coaching staff. They got a lot of cap space. They kind of started to build this thing already last year. I think they kind of could be a surprise team next year, but they got to do it right. They got to use that cap space. They got to draft well again. They got to fill these needs here. So that's definitely a team I definitely got my eye on for this offseason because they could make that jump, but it's just not going to happen overnight here. They got to actually go to work. We'll see if they do that. And the Dolphins got to go tackle. That offensive line's a bit of a mess. It's more – it actually might look – the look of it might look a little more messy than it is because they've had struggles, okay? But they got guys that there's some hope there still. They drafted Liam Eichenberg last year. I think he can play. They were trying Austin Jackson on that guard. That might be better for him. I think Robert Hunt's got a solid future. They got Kinley back in there maybe. They got some, it's not a standout, not even close to a standout offensive line, but they got some guys that, maybe could step it up. But why I say it looks like a mess is because they got guys, they brought in Hunt. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Let's move him here to here. I think that's going to work out with him. Austin Jackson, they reached for him. They're moving him around. Eichenberg, they drafted to play. Is he playing right? Is he playing left? So it looks pretty messy. Maybe it looks a little worse than it is. But I think they can use another tackle in there. I think they definitely can use another tackle, protect Tua if he's their guy. Put running back in there. And they got a couple guys that can play, but you can see they don't trust them. And they're pretty inconsistent. Their running backs, inconsistent when hitting the hole. There's games where it's like, okay, they might have a running back here, but then, it's kind of just inconsistency there, but they can really benefit from, and videos like this are kind of tough to do. That's why I'm kind of holding off on some of these videos, like fits. I usually do fits. It's because some of these teams don't even have a coaching staff yet. But I feel like, and I've been talking about Mike McDaniel for the Dolphins for a while, and I feel like that could be their guy. And having a very good running game be pretty important. So I did think about that a little bit here. And then receiver, and again, Jalen Waddle's fantastic. They got a guy in Jalen Waddle for sure. But they got some guys. They got Devontae Parker. They got a couple, Preston Williams to be back. They got some guys, but there is a separation problem, I think. It's really just Jalen Waddle for that quick separation. So they can use another separating receiver. Really, you look through the Dolphins and I don't know if there's a lot of holes, that maybe you would think they would have maybe more. Well, I guess if you want to factor in quarterback, you definitely can make that case. Maybe another linebacker in there, but we'll see how they approach the offseason. They have a pretty good amount of actually league-high cap space available as of today. So that's pretty interesting. But again, people will probably argue quarterback should be in here. Maybe you build some of these things first. I guess debatable. Washington football team was one of the NFC East teams. I'm going to go quarterback one. I think this team, looking through this team, evaluating this roster, less holes than maybe you would think. A team that struggled this year. We expected more, but maybe less holes than you would think here. I think if you get a solid it's easier said than done. I think if you get a solid quarterback in there, they could be a very solid team, a playoff team here. So that's number one for me. And I'm going to go safety. They'll probably move on from Landon Collins, who they didn't really view as a safety that much as well. They have Cameron Curl, who was solid in his rookie year. I definitely could benefit from adding another one there at the safety position to help out that defense. I'm going to go receiver, which is tough because they spent pretty big on Curtis Samuel. I definitely think Curtis Samuel fits that offense perfectly, and he's a good ball player. But he was injured, and he is kind of a unique type receiver. They probably want to use him like a Deebo Samuel, like with 49ers are doing, but can he stay healthy is the question. And they have Terry McLaurin. They need another guy that can get separation, take a little bit of load off of Terry McLaurin there. So I threw receiver in there. I mean, you could argue linebacker, because the linebacker play was not that great this year, but they got some young guys that I think you can work with and Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb, guys like this. So, I'm not a guy that, you got to rely on development. I'm more of a guy that if you have a chance to get better, you get better. So I can understand if they attack a linebacker, they go get one. But, I think they got some guys they can work with here. So it's just go get that quarterback. Go maybe another safety there. So Washington's roster is actually probably better than one would think there in terms of holes. The Giants, pretty much offensive line, interior offensive line first. The interior is bad, and there's free agents. There's a lot of hype around Will Hernandez. See what they do with him. Hasn't really lived up to the hype. And tackle, pairing out Andrew Thomas be pretty big. And I put quarterback in there. They may stick with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones very well could play better if he's the guy under Brian Daboll. I'm expecting it. I think he'll play better, but is better enough? Turnovers don't really go away. Turnovers have been an issue, and he was injured this year. I do think it is a need. I actually think the Giants, outside of offensive line and quarterback, maybe an edge rusher. I really like the upside of Azeez Ojulari. Maybe another inside linebacker. But I really like this roster outside of what's listed here. And I think that if they kind of can, I guess easier said than done, but if they can kind of add some things in these important spots, I think it could be a very dangerous team. They got some work to do here, though. But I do like their coaching hire, so that helps. Cowboys, linebacker, believe it or not, they drafted Micah Parsons in the first round last year, which worked wonders. But they split Micah Parsons, edge, off-ball linebacker, a little bit more off-ball linebacker, and they'll probably continue to do that, but he's so good off the edge, so much upside. They probably want him to do a little more than what they did, which was around 8% top of my head, just off watching of reps, so a little more off-ball. But they probably want to do it, maybe raise that percentage, the snap percentage alignment, outside a little bit more. So they could use another linebacker to assist in that. On top of that, they got some free agents like a Leighton Vander Esch at the linebacker position. I thought it was kind of exposed a little bit in a game like the 49ers because the 49ers are physical inside. They'll pound the ball up the middle. I think once it got by the defensive line, at the linebackers a little bit of an issue, especially it was kind of blatant that it was like when Parsons is on the outside, off the edge, just run right up the middle, and that was kind of a problem for the Cowboys. Interior offensive line, they're kind of taking some steps down there. They need somebody to pair with Zach Martin. They have Connor Williams, who's a free agent, a little sloppy in the game against 49ers playoff game, so they could use add some interior guys here. And safety, believe it or not, safety play kind of has been taking a step up, but they got a list of free agents. They're all, a guy like Jerron Kersey really stepped up for them, a free agent, just a list of free agents there. So they could use a better coverage safety in there with those free agents, but pretty talented roster overall, obviously. Eagles going to go safety one, actually, because they're all free agents in there as well, and they kind of can get better on top of that. So getting some guys, because they want to run a lot of split safeties, help over the top, cover 50% of the field for those safeties. So getting those coverage guys with some instincts, that to read the ability to read the quarterback, that'd probably be ideal for that defense. I'm gonna go receiver. Devontae Smith needs some help. Got some really inconsistent receivers. It was pretty much what's target tight ends and Devontae Smith. They need some more help there to help out Jalen Hurts, maybe if he's their quarterback. And linebacker, Singleton's pretty solid. Could look to add around him as well. It does look weaker on paper, but first I was going to put linebacker at one, but really looking at this roster, I think they benefit from adding those other spots before them, but it also is a need. Ravens, actually all defense here. I mean, I thought about receiver too, though, but I think guys like Rashad Bateman will step up. Hollywood Brown was getting going. He had some drops early on in the year, but then was really getting going. They got some other guys that can play. But a team like the Bengals, taking over with that standout, legit multiple number one receivers. I mean, I think team like that, you look at Chase, Boyd, and Higgins. I think they're all like with their talent level considered number one receivers. So that's why you could argue receiver here for the Ravens. A lot of people say offensive line, but they'll be getting some guys back. Ronnie Stanley, Jawan James, a sneaky guy that could play at right tackle there. So I would say not so fast in the offensive line. They could look to make it better for sure. Keep Lamar Jackson protected and healthy. But you look at the defense. The defensive line is they got free agents. Calais Campbell, they're 3-4 end. And then obviously Brandon Williams, their nose tackle, so they could look to add defensive linemen for sure here. And then edge, I mean, they got some guys. Dafe Away was very impressive, and I think he'll continue to be impressive. And they have Tyus Bowsey, who's currently hurt, but he'll be back. Should be back starting next year. But they kind of got guys that fit Martindale scheme, guys that can, athletic enough and have the coverage ability to drop back to blitz the inside linebacker. So I think they can really benefit from adding a guy that just straight up can get after the quarterback there. And I think Away could be that guy, but he's a raw prospect still. So you can't, you got to get more of a consistent pass rusher in there to help this year because you want to be able to contend this year. And safety, I like a guy like Chuck Clark. They definitely could look to add a safety, a coverage safety, because again, they played a lot, with under Martindale with the safeties up in the box, man coverage. Maybe you could benefit from adding more of a coverage safety, zone coverage safety, because they're going to be changing things up a little bit. So I think this would help the Ravens here with their new look defense, perhaps slightly new look defense. Brown's going to go receiver one. A lot of drops, a lot of bad play. They could even move on from Jarvis Landry because it's pretty pricey, and they have the ability to cut him and save over $15 million. So that's possible. Definitely think they need a receiver. Linebacker, free agents, and maybe their weaker spot on their defense. And then defensive tackle, kind of the same thing. Kind of just the middle of that defense, which I actually talked about going into the year. The middle of that defense, starting with the defensive line and the linebacker position. If they can add at both of those positions, they have a guy like Jeremiah Wusu-Karamoa at linebacker. Maybe a guy like Jordan Elliott steps up at defensive tackle, but they definitely could look to add more. But if they can add some bright players, some good players in those spots, the defense could be scary good because the rest of it looks scary good there. So go receiver, linebacker, and defensive tackle for the Browns. Quarterback. Definitely could talk about quarterback as well. I think you build these spots, but I mean, that's a debatable part. People probably would throw quarterback in here, but it's on the level of, getting to the Super Bowl. You need a quarterback, I guess, and everyone wants to get to the Super Bowl, but you can't really snap your fingers and just get a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. And I still think he has the talent in him as well. So these are the needs they'll look at, and everyone's always going to be looking at quarterbacks. If they have the ability to get better, and they'll view it as a need, and they'll pull the trigger there, but it's pretty rare. So I listed those options instead. Steelers, I'm going to go quarterback there. Obviously, Big Ben retiring, and kind of need to get better from that anyways. So that is number one. They have the weapons. They need more of that big play ability. Go tackle next. Tackle play was pretty bad. It's obviously a big need. And I went corner. Joe Hayden, a free agent. There was some talk about him kind of looking to go elsewhere. They need a little weaker than normal at corners this past year as well. They want to be able to run more man coverage like they used to, so I throw a corner in there. Could talk about linebacker. The linebacker play was pretty bad. They were unable to stop the run like they normally do, so could talk about linebackers as well. Steelers maybe have more needs than you would think for a playoff team there, but definitely starts with quarterback. Bengals, Super Bowl team right now. They're in the Super Bowl, and really the only weak spot feels like offensive line. It's a very talented team, but interior offensive line first, then tackle. Do they bring Riley Reif back, who was looking pretty good? I mean, Jonah Williams slipping up a little bit in the postseason, but still has some upside, still a good young tackle for the future. And then, they don't have a lot of glaring ones, but I'll throw a corner in there. Could they move on from Trey Waynes? Could save some money that way. They definitely could look to add another corner, but not too many needs for a team that's in the Super Bowl, obviously, here with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's mainly that offensive line. This team could build that offensive line. Joe Burrow and the rest of this team going to look even scarier, even better than they already are. So that's the crazy part there. So curious to see how they handle it. It's not easy to build an offensive line in one offseason, though. Lions going to go receiver first. It's pretty much Amon-Ra St. Brown out there carrying that group. Could look to add another one. Going to go quarterback. Goff was okay, but I guess, quarterback looks like more of a need with, the Rams. They get Matthew Stafford 1 year. They're in the Super Bowl, so that kind of looks bad for Goff. So that kind of shows you that he may not be it. And they could look to add another quarter to get better there or find a guy for the future. And I'm going to go edge, lack of getting after the quarterback. They did have some injuries. Romeo Okwara was hurt, and they have his brother Julian Okwara, who has some upside. But I'd still like for them to add an edge rusher. I think people will talk. Yeah, I see people talking about corner need. I don't know. I think they got some bright young guys. I still got hope for Okudah. He's been a little bit of a letdown, but he was hurt this past year. They got some young guys that I think could step up. I wouldn't put corner at the top here. I like that they have their offensive line looking pretty good. That's set. So some promising things for the future here. Maybe just, got to fill these needs and got to do a better job coaching, situational things in games, and the lines could be sneaky somewhere in the future here, maybe another year to get the roster set. The Bears, tough one decision of what to put at number one between receiver and tackle, both giant needs because they're lacking in those areas, and they have that prized possession, Justin Fields, that they want to obviously this guy needs to work out. He has all the talent in the world, so build around him. Allen Robinson didn't really work out with them. He's also a free agent. It's pretty much just Darnell Mooney. I think you need and I love me some Darnell Mooney, but I think you need that number one, that top tier guy, so to help them out a ton. That was supposed to be Allen Robinson, but for some reason it didn't really work out with Justin Fields. So getting a guy, maybe more of a separator type guy to be that legit number one. I'd like for them to get one of those versatile receivers that can kind of play in the slot and play outside. The kind of guys that are taking over today's game. I think they'll benefit a lot from a guy like that. And tackle, definitely need a tackle or maybe two. Hopefully Tevin Jenkins could step up. I'd like for them to take him, put him at right tackle, try to add a left tackle. It's not the easiest thing to accomplish in one offseason here, but I would like for that. But those are two big ones. And it does kind of, I know they have a different staff pretty much, different front office in there, but the last staff kind of thought the same thing because they made a big offer for Kenny Golladay and Trent Williams, two big-time free agents last offseason and at those positions. So I think they'll look to do that. And then for number three, a couple options here. I went with D-line, though, because a guy like Akeem Hicks is a free agent. Bilal Nichols is a free agent. They definitely could use another guy in there. Eddie Goldman, some questions with him this last year or so because he opted out 2 years ago. But it'd be pretty big for Eberflus to find. I mean, you're not going to really find a DeForest Buckner, but that style of defensive tackle, I think it'd be pretty big for them because they are switching to a 4-3, of course. So get guys that kind of fit that role. I thought about linebacker, though, because they're switching to a 4-3. Question is, where's the talented Roquan Smith going to move? Going to play maybe try him at weak side, even though he's been playing inside. But I think having a pretty good guy next to him. Could it be Danny Trevathan? He's been a little disappointed recently. He's had some injuries, kind of getting up there in age. So I did think about linebacker. Kind of look through this Bears roster, and it's there's more needs than you thought because they probably need multiple of everything. That's the big thing there. And I think they get a pretty good leader and a good defensive coach with Eberflus. But it did kind of open up some needs, changing scheme on top of you needed to mainly focus on the offense here. So we'll see what they can do, especially without a first-round pick. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. Vikings all defense. People will probably talk about quarterback. Yeah, quarterback of the future because Kirk Cousins, one more year on his contract. But, it's a quarterback that can play. If you want to win a Super Bowl, you got to keep looking as well. But it's not the top of the needs here. Go corner because Patrick Peterson's a free agent. They got rid of Bashaud Breeland. It's pretty much just Cam Dantzler out there who really struggled this year. They need corners in there for sure. It's a tough one, too, because we don't know who their staff is yet. They're probably getting close, but it is a glaring need. I'm going to go linebacker here. Now, keep in mind that they could go with a scheme change, and Kendricks could fit the scheme change either way on the inside, in my opinion. But adding another linebacker would be pretty key. Anthony Barr, free agent, been beat up. It's kind of Kendricks trying to carry the load. They definitely need another linebacker in there. Maybe a guy that can help stop the run and blitz when needed. And then edge rusher, interesting decision coming up with Danielle Hunter because they reworked his deal to get the guy more money this past offseason. But it's almost like the Vikings have an option. Not really, but it's almost like that where they can move on from him and save a ton of money, or they keep him and they pay him a ton of money. And the guy has all the talent in the world to be worth that money, but last 2 years – some two different injuries, so that's a little bit. Do we pay this guy when he's not been healthy? They struggled at the edge position this year for the most part. Their sacks came from Danielle Hunter only playing 7 games in blitz, so they definitely can use another defensive end. I guess it would be to be determined what they decide on Danielle Hunter. They may try to trade him actually, so they could really use an edge defender that way. But they look pretty good on offense. It's weird not seeing, putting offensive line up here because they needed offensive line for so long. But I think they did a pretty good job adding young talent these last 2 years. There finally looks like they're good at left tackle with Darisaw. They have Brian O'Neill at right tackle. They extended him. I guess the interior you can question. They like Ezra Cleveland at guard, but I guess center and guard they could take a look at. But what I think it's a growing group, and it's a young group that can grow together too. So I like that about them. To the Packers, receiver one, Devontae Adams, a free agent. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, a free agent. And again, they just kind of need more help in there. Devontae Adams gets doubled, and the offense can't really do much against the Niners there in the playoff game. And then tackle, really beat up at tackle position this year and underwhelming in terms of the play on top of it. So the Packers always make sure they have the best tackles. They're set at that. Bakhtiari should be back full term next year, but I still think they need one. And linebacker, Devondre Campbell really stepped up this year, carried the linebacker group. He is a free agent. They could use a guy next to him anyways. But again, he is a free agent, and they're really tight on cap space there. So that's the tricky part. All eyes are on what happens with Aaron Rodgers there. Colts receiver for sure at the top. Pittman's got to carry too much. Hilton's really not the same. He's also a free agent. They got a list of free agents at receivers. It's pretty much just Pittman. Definitely need somebody else, a guy that can get separation early in a route, in my opinion, that help them. Corner, it's pretty much Kenny Moore, who they like to play inside, but they have to play him outside because he's just their best corner in general. They got free agents, and they got guys. They need corners that can just, handle man coverage downfield, and they're kind of restricted to running a lot of cover too because they just didn't really. They wanted their corners in the flats. They didn't really want to ask a lot more outside of Kenny Moore. They didn't really want to ask a lot more of them. So they need corners, and they need mainly just one tackle here, maybe for that left side for the future. Because their pass protection it's still very solid, especially when you compare it to the rest of the league. It's still up there, but it took a step down. I thought this year, run blocking was still great. They could use a tackle. Quarterback could argue it could be up here. If you want to take that next step, try to make a run. You could use a quarterback, but I think get these things in place first. It's not that easy to find a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, even though it is out there. I'm not a huge Carson Wentz guy, but I do think he could play better if you kind of build these things around him. But the way Irsay is talking, Ballard's talking, they would like to get better at quarterback. It's just easier said than done there. Titans tight end, the only team with tight end on their list. Yeah, they pretty bad tight end play this year. They really missed their guy, Jonnu Smith. I was originally going to put receiver at the top because A.J. Brown's fantastic, but he missed some games, and Julio Jones doesn't seem the same, and he missed a lot of games, so definitely could add another guy in there. I don't like that A.J. Brown's talking about playing baseball. I mean, it shows the athlete that he is, but I don't like that his interest is there, and then he has a little bit of the injury. I guess you can't say his injury concern, but I don't really love that idea. So I was going to think about receiver, but receivers can benefit from a legit receiving tight end in there. So I'll put tight end at the top, then go receiver. And then tackle, Luan has the injury concern. Maybe took a little bit of a step down. Right tackle, a little bit of question as well. So they could use a tackle. Other than that, they really built that defense pretty well, I thought. So other than that, not too many needs. Quarterback, you can throw a quarterback in there. So another one of those situations, like, if you want to win a Super Bowl, which the Titans are trying to do, then you need to go get a better quarterback, but easier said than done. They can win games with Ryan Tannehill. These are more glaring needs right now, but we'll see what they do. Tight on cap space for sure. The Jags are going to go receiver. There was a separation problem for sure there with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which hurt Trevor Lawrence a little bit, so could go that route. Tackle, Cam Robinson, a free agent. I mean, they could get better at both tackle spots, but mainly looking at that left tackle spot. And then interior offensive line, aging a little bit in there, obviously. So, and then Norwell, free agent. So they could just build around Trevor Lawrence is kind of the key here. I like some of the young spots they got. They're pretty. They got some young defensive backs. Players in the front seven as well. Running backs, obviously. So there's quarterbacks. So they got some guys that can continue to develop in those spots. That's the good thing. They got a lot of cap space, also a good thing. Texans, very tough to narrow it down to 3. I put edge 1. Looks like they like Grenard, but they definitely can use another pass rusher out there to get after the quarterback. They're kind of lacking that area. All the linebackers are free agents. Don't have Cunningham anymore either. They definitely can look to get better there. And cornerback, they're pretty thin on paper there. I mean, we could talk about a lot of different positions here. Running back, We could talk about almost every position with the Texans, but these are the ones that stood out to me at the top there. A lot of free agents, a lot of one-year deals there. So be interesting to see what they do. They're definitely in that early rebuild stage. Saints go quarterback one. Definitely need a guy that has consistency throwing downfield. Jameis Winston, a free agent again. Do they get him back? Go receiver there. They could be getting Michael Thomas back, but definitely still needs some more help. It was pretty bad across the board. Could have thrown tight end in there as well, actually, now that I think about it. Receiver/tight end. And then safety, Marcus Williams, a free agent. And then Malcolm Jenkins kind of declining a little bit. Perhaps. He's still playing pretty well for his age, but kind of looking out for the future here. And will there be a change? I still expect Dennis Allen to be the guy, but will there be a change? Talk about maybe guys like Brian Flores. So maybe that'd be change how the safeties, what type of safeties they use. We will see. I'd imagine, though, if they brought somebody on the outside in, that they would kind of be that leader guy, and then they'd probably still run the same defense, but we'll see. Mainly looking at quarterback, receiver/tight end there for the offense, but they do want to keep that defense solid at the same time. Buccaneers got to go quarterback now because Tom Brady retired. So I'm glad I waited to do this video here an extra day. Retired officially this morning. So they need a quarterback. Kyle Trask, they drafted last year. He could have a bright future. It really depends on if they go rebuild mode, because they got a lot of free agents. And if they decide we're going to go rebuilds, then maybe the quarterback gets knocked down, because then you can go Trask, But if they want to re-sign those guys and stay talented, stay competing, they need a quarterback. They need a quarterback that can compete right now. That's really not a knock on Trask. It's just still a little bit of a project maybe. Receiver, we saw that down the stretch with Godwin hurt. Godwin's also a free agent, and Antonio Brown leaving the team. So they definitely need a receiver. And then the corners kind of struggle a little bit. It had to do with the injuries for the most part, but and then Carlton Davis is also a free agent. Their best corner, he's a free agent too, so could use that. But they got free agents on the interior offensive line, center and guard. They got free agents on the defensive line. They got free agents everywhere, so it's pretty tough. Actually, it's a tough look for the Bucs. It's a good thing they won that Super Bowl last year. It'd be pretty painful for them right now. Next, the Panthers got to go quarterback. Quarterback play was an absolute disaster last year. Then they need offensive line. They need interior, and they need tackles. All this is pretty even. They need it pretty bad. It's tough to find these things. But I guess the good news is they're pretty good outside of this. I like their defense. They got a lot of young, talented players in the defense. And they got weapons, too. It's just about staying healthy there. But so not a lot of needs, just some massive ones here for the glaring ones, blatant ones for the Carolina Panthers. So they've been struggling to accomplish this, I guess, especially at the quarterback position. They kind of been missing a lot. Can they judge quarterbacks? Can they make the right moves? From that front office and maybe Matt Rule, so that's kind of the question here going into this offseason. Do they gamble again? They've kind of been gambling a little bit, how much they paid Bridgewater and what they traded away and paid the option to Darnold. Questionable there. So we'll see what they do. Don't have full trust in their judgment, but if they get a sure thing guy, they'll attack Deshaun Watson. If they get him, it's like, okay, the guy, he's good. He's got to be good, So we'll see. Falcons got to go edge. They got to go edge, pass rush. They got to get to the quarterback. They're just not getting the quarterback. So they're second, given that, and their secondary guys like AJ Terrell, pretty impressive what they did, given that they had to cover for a long time there. They do find unique ways to generate pressure. Credit to Dean Pease. I think he's a very good defensive coordinator, so they're good in that way. They definitely need pass rush help. And they just need help around Grady Jarrett in general, because that guy is better than what he's looking like. They got to get him some damn help. Interior offensive line was bad this year. And they got that's tough, because they got some young guys in there that we just expected more from. So maybe they could try to develop these guys. But Matt Ryan, when he was pressured quickly, it's just because of that interior pressure. Just a quick trip to the quarterback, and Matt Ryan couldn't really escape it there. I got to go receiver. A couple of free agents. Ridley wants to be traded. Even with Ridley, I think you need a receiver. They're going to need a receiver there. Could talk about quarterback in the future. Could talk about, again, D-line in general, interior maybe next to Grady Jarrett. Foye Oluokun is a free agent, a standout linebacker. They could use, they definitely need him back. Safety play, I guess was on, it could be better, but Richie Grant, guys like this are going to step up. Maybe a corner outside A.J. Terrell. Just not giant needs. I guess they got a list of them, but they're not giant like these ones up here, mainly edge and interior offensive line. Broncos got to go quarterback because it feels like a quarterback away team in a way. They got the weapons at receiver, running back. Offensive line's pretty solid. Defensively, it was a standout defense last year. They got to keep it that way, though, so that's why you see the rest of these all their linebackers are free agents, all of them, pretty much, the off-ball inside linebackers. So they could look to get some of those guys back. They should. Get Kenny Young back in there. It shouldn't be too expensive. I liked what I saw from him. And then one of A.J. Johnson or Josie Jewell there. That'd be pretty solid. Edge rush, I definitely think they need because Bradley Chubb is a little bit of injury concern in there, but even with him on the field, you want to pair somebody with him. Another top-tier guy, though. So keep that defense together. It feels like the offense is letting them down. Defense is helping them out, and that's the case. But as soon as this team gets a good quarterback, easier said than done, it could be the offense that's the main part of this thing. So that's kind of like it's mainly a good thing in a way if you can find that quarterback there. So Raiders receiver stepped up down the stretch. Actually, Hunter Renfrow was fantastic. It's a fantastic slot receiver. Zay Jones actually stepped up. He's a free agent. I think they need a number one outside guy there to help out Derek Carr because he could be even better. Corner needs some help. We'll see who they hire as defensive coordinator. I was kind of predicting a while ago Martindale they can bring in, which corner would be even more. Corner would go up to number one. Then you need some man cornerbacks here, guys that can be left in the island and handle that. So Hayward's a free agent. He wouldn't fit that anyways. Mullen could be that guy if he's healthy. And then defensive line, interior defensive line, some free agents. They gave out some one-year contracts up there. Definitely could use some guys to help stop the run inside the interior of the defensive line there. Next, we got the Chargers. This is tough to decide what to put at one. I went receiver, though. I mean, they got to be able to stop the run. That's why those other things are up there, but because it's so important to be able to stop the run. But this is Herbert's team. This could be the best offense in football. It is a very good offense, but we got to make sure it is. We don't want to leave anything out on the field. This team led the league in drops. They dropped the ball in some bad moments, too. It's not, it was third downs, red zone, in the end zone. It was bad. So they need receivers. Mike Williams, a free agent. I would like to get a more consistent receiver for them as well to pair around Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's also got to play better than he did this year, but get Herbert some receivers that can get the job done here. Defensive line, they need some help up there to help stop the run. Maybe get some guys that can get some interior pressure as well. And a linebacker crew is struggling a little bit. Got to be able to stop the run. They got a lot of cap space, and these are doable things. It's not like it's quarterback, offensive line, but if they can get another number one receiver to pair with Keenan Allen that can catch the damn ball, and if they can get a standout defensive line tackle, and they can get a standout linebacker with the money they have in an appealing spot, this is a scary team. So they got some work to do. But they got to go out there and do it, Chiefs go edge first. They relied on the blitz for pressure. It's just how they got their pressure, and they relied on Chris Jones' interior pressure. Frank Clark really isn't getting the job done anymore. Ingram's a free agent. They need somebody off the edge that can get consistent pressure. Receiver, see what the Bengals did in the second half of the AFC Championship game, how they beat them. They were dropping as many guys they want in coverage, a lot of rushing three. Just bring guys back in coverage that really threw off the Chiefs. That's just how you play against them. Double coverage on Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and it's ball game. They need another receiver that can make that not possible. So that it's a pretty big need, actually. I'd watch out for Juju Smith-Schuster. They might attack him, actually. Safety, Tyrann Mathieu, a free agent. He's talking kind of on Twitter like he may not be back. I think that's part of he may not be back, and it looks like that, but it's part of a little bit of a game. He may have the idea that they're not going to pay him what he wants, so he kind of puts that out there. Maybe they come along, pay him what he wants. Maybe they let him test it out. Maybe he doesn't get what he wants. He comes back to the Chiefs. It's possible. They could use a free safety on top of it, some better coverage downfield. Could put corners in there, but they manage with their corners, some decent young ones there. These are pretty big needs in my opinion. I think edge and receiver got to be the focus to win that Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl, get back there. 49ers, I actually went receiver one. That might surprise some people, but I was sitting there thinking, they use Debo. I mean, Debo is a receiver. He's a running back. They use him in different ways, obviously. So if you want to put him at running back, you got to have another receiver out there. Ayuk's very solid, promising receiver, but I think you need another one. I think they can really benefit, can help Trey Lance's development if you get a receiver, a consistent wide receiver out there. So to me, that'd be pretty big for this offense. Corner, they kind of hid the fact, because that defense is playing very well. They hid the fact that they were pretty weak at corner, so maybe it's not the most important spot on their scheme, which is a good thing to have there. But they definitely can get better out there. Ambry Thomas looks pretty promising for the future. Was one of my draft sleepers, so I'm excited about that. But they could look to add another one there. Interior offensive line could be better. Laken Tomlinson's a free agent. They can look to get him back. If they get him back, maybe Aaron Banks steps up. Maybe Aaron Banks steps up for him. I think he's got a promising future. But again, Fortnite's got a pretty damn good roster. It's just about developing that quarterback and then kind of getting him the pieces that he needs here. But pretty good roster, obviously, for the 49ers. It's just really, if Trey Lance plays better than expected next year, then they can be special. Cardinals got to go interior offensive line. It was really struggling down the stretch. Kyler Murray was under a lot of pressure. Murray has to play a lot better too, so we're not going to use this as an excuse, but it was hurting Kyler Murray a little bit. The offensive line was allowing a lot of pressure, quick trips to the quarterback interior wise there, so they definitely need help there. They should be good at center. Rodney Hudson, when he missed games, they had some problems though. Defensive line. Definitely need defensive line. It's a big reason why some teams, good rushing teams, were able to run on them is because they just don't have anybody out front that really can stop it. J.J. Watt can definitely help as a 3-4 defensive end, but he has the injury concern, maybe not the same player he was. They need defensive linemen up there up front. And then corner, they played better than how they look on paper. On paper, you may put corner at 1, but I think these other things are bigger there, but they could look to add a corner for sure there. But got to focus on the interior on both sides of the ball here. Seahawks, offense tackle, needed as it is. Dwayne Brown is also a free agent. Sound like Brown wanted this money. They didn't really want to give it to him yet, so we'll see what happens there. And he's kind of he's still solid for his age, but he's on the older side. They definitely could use the tackle. Corner, very weak at the position there. And then edge, maybe they were allowing pretty quick separation, so the edge really didn't have a shot to go get after the quarterback, because they do got guys like Darrell Taylor and Carlos Dunlap. I think they kind of get more of a consistent guy in there for sure. But a lot of cap space. Seahawks could be sneaky. If you keep Russell Wilson, you add to the offensive line. That's a tough part. That's hard to do. Use that cap space, because in the past they had cap space and were afraid to use it for some reason. But if they actually use it and kind of hit on these things, they can be back to those Seahawks, again. So we'll see what they do. Good news, they got a lot of cap space. Bad news is they're usually hesitant to use it for some reason. And then another team in the Super Bowl here, the Rams. Linebacker, which is tough to put linebacker number 1. This is actually an interesting one because they need a linebacker. It's a weak spot of that defense. 49ers were kind of exposing that a little bit this year. But they don't really value it a lot. So I don't know if they'll actually have linebacker at number 1, So that's why it's pretty interesting with the linebacker. But that's kind of their weakest spot. Interior offensive line, some free agents in there. They're very good at coaching, developing the offensive line, though. And then edge, Von Miller is a free agent. They bring him back. They don't really need edge then because they have Leonard Floyd as well. Probably maybe only a 1 or 2 year deal with Von Miller, so maybe they can use one. They're in the Super Bowl for a reason. It's a pretty talented team with not a lot of holes here. So that is why it's not really glaring ones with their needs here. So those are, I feel like I did a lot of talking. Yes, 43 minutes. So let's wrap it up. Those are the needs, top 3 needs for each team. Obviously factored in free agents for teams, who they're missing. They got to get back. And we'll have a lot of talk, content for predictions, grades on free agency, cover the draft fully as well here. So subscribe, turn notifications on, check out those recent videos, links pinned down in the comment section for some important things there. So check it out. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.